I'm Rebecca Bradley. This is the Virtual Crime Book Club. It is Monday, the 25th of April, 2022. And today we are discussing The Dying Squad by Adam Simcox. And there will be spoilers if you're watching this as a video after the event. Be aware, we'll be discussing the whole book. If you haven't read it yet, be warned, there will be spoilers involved. Now, we are lucky enough to have Adam with us for the first 15 minutes or so, where I will be asking him a few questions. Now, I could only find a small amount of information on Adam, which is that as well as writing, he is multi-talented, creating films and scripts. So that's what I've got on you, Adam.
Thank you. I mean, I will definitely take that introduction. I do write films, as I rewrite scripts and make films.
Yeah.
Making films is kind of my day job.
Well, thank you for joining us today anyway. I really appreciate you taking the time out.
No worries. Thanks for having me. Thanks for reading the book. Appreciate it.
No, that's it was the popular choice. The Dying Squad is an unusual mashup between a crime novel and fantasy. Do you lean a certain way when you're reading crime or fantasy?
I don't actually, no. I mean, I kind of, in terms of crime, I usually read probably straighter crime than The Dying Squad is. And fantasy, I don't read a ton of fantasy, to be honest, which is nothing. I've got nothing against fantasy. It's just I tend to read more sort of crime or thrillers or comedies. So it was kind of unusual even for me to mash those two up. But that's just the way, it sounds weird. That's just the way the story told me to write it. So I dreamt the first two chapters and I just wrote it down. It was just it was almost kind of beat for beat. I wrote down the dream, and then it led on from there, really.
I was going to say what sparked the idea, and it was literally a dream.
It was literally a dream. I know that's the kind of made up sort of thing that a writer would say at this point, but it genuinely was, and it was really vivid. It was kind of a really vivid dream, and so the next day I just kind of wrote down the notes on it, and I was actually writing something different at the time, so I left it for a bit and then came back to it, and I thought it was worth pursuing, because kind of anytime you've got an idea that you can condense just into a sentence, so it's detective has to solve his own murder, you've usually know you've got something pretty decent there, something that could potentially connect with people. So yeah, I knew straight away it was an idea worth pursuing.
To say you don't read a lot of fantasy, how did you expand on such a strange idea?
Maybe I just got a warped and twisted imagination. I don't know. I mean, I kind of used, I guess you soak up things. So, I mean, I watch a lot of films, so I kind of must have soaked up a lot of films. I think one of the things that pleases me, people think it's kind of fresh and original, The Dying Squad. I'm so pleased about that. But to me, I just kind of see all the little references in it that are kind of the other films or books I've taken inspiration from and kind of put my voice on. So there's a lot of film references in there. It's kind of quite cinematic, I guess, as well as I take more film references than I do references from other books.
It was to me, it was an unusual take on death, but you're saying there were snippets of things from other places, but it wasn't anything like I'd read before, but it was extremely detailed. How did you go about creating that world?
Well, it's a funny one. I mean, I think I'm not particularly religious, but I come from actually quite a religious family. Like my mum was a vicar and my dad's religious. So a lot of it must have just soaked in. And I went to church when I was younger. I think a lot of it just soaked in. And so the trick for me when I was writing this was to kind of take all the kind of spiritual or the worldly elements, but make them as realistic as possible. So I really like the the film director Shane Meadows, who made This Is England and quite a lot of social realistic things. So I took it from the standpoint of I wanted to bring in these kind of very realistic problems we've got on Earth, such as like the county lines, drug running, which is a real thing, and then mash it in with these otherworldly elements. And hopefully I succeeded on that. Fingers crossed.
What kind of considerations did you put into, when you were creating the pit and what else was it? The pit, the gloop, the soil. What kinds of considerations did you put into it when you were building it?
I mean, it's so weird because I find I had to kind of go back and keep a list of the rules I was creating, because I think you can make something as fantastical as you want as long as you keep to the rules you create for the universe you're doing. So, I can't just make Joe fly, or like you've got to be very quite rigid in the when you're doing the world building, and you can do what you want, but then you have to keep to that. Otherwise, I think the reader just feels cheated. I think it's particularly when you're making something as fantastical as parts of this book is, people need rules. They need to know what the boundaries are in terms of reading. Otherwise, it's just it's too free flowing, I think.
Because it really was quite detailed, the afterlife part of it. There was a lot of detail and a lot of rules and who was doing what and where people were allowed to go. As a writer, are you a plotter or a pantser? And for any non-writers, the plotters are writers that outline their work before they start writing, and pantsers are writers who just sit down and write without an outline first.
Yeah, I'm a pantser. I'm a pantser when it comes to novels.
You wrote the afterlife without an outline.
I did. I mean, when I started the book, I didn't even know the afterlife was really going to be in it. I just knew I had this dead detective who can see his own body. I didn't plan it any more than that, because I think it's a good thing and a bad thing doing it that way. The good part of it is that it's new to me every time I sit down to write it. So when there's a twist or something, so there's one particularly big twist in this book, which you said there was going to be spoilers. So yeah. Where Joe discovers that he was kind of the guy that ran the gang. I mean, that I didn't know that until 2 paragraphs before I got to that bit in the book. And you get to that, you go, oh, that's good. And then that's the kind of thing you want, because then hopefully the reader has that reaction as well. I think if you sit down and try and plot too much, oh, there's going to be a twist there, it just feels a bit manufactured. The bad side of that is, with both this book and the second book, which is out in August, I kind of went wrong a couple of times, because you're kind of doing the investigation yourself into this crime, because I didn't really know who'd done it or their motivation for doing it when I set out. So you're almost doing the investigation yourself, which is good because it's exciting, but it also means sometimes you go wrong and you have to go back and rewrite bits. But overall, I think that's still worth it for the kind of the freshness it takes to not plan it out too much. With scripts, actually, I'm the opposite. With scripts, I do tend, to plan it out, because normally I'm having to write to a very rigid time structure and it can't go over that. So I've got to know what happens where. But for novels, yeah, I'm a pure pantser.
Do you know what I've written following that question? It was a very intricate book. I would think pantsing my way through it without first creating the world would be awful, because I cannot imagine creating that afterlife because it was so detailed, the rules for it, that I would need to know it to write it.
Well, it's funny that the afterlife bits, actually, so in the pen, they're the bits that change the least. And that's been true of kind of the Dying Squad and then the second book, The Generation Killer, because it's almost like you can't get those bits wrong, because they're so kind of fantastical and they are purely of your creation. There's almost no wrong to go, as long as you keep true to the characters and what their motivations and what they do. those bits you can't get wrong. Where I find it difficult, and the bits that usually take rewriting, is the investigations in the real world. Because those really can go wrong. Those, you have a very specific set of rules, and people expect, in an investigation to go a certain way. So I kind of think of these books as, because I think there's some question of some people of whether they're actually crime novels. And to me, they are, because the engine and the machine of it is crime. Like a crime is committed and Joe needs to solve it. Joe and Daisy need to solve it. They're just, the embellishments around are kind of fantastical, but the heart of it to me is a crime novel.
Do you know when you set out what the ending's going to be, at least?
Pretty much. So I knew the end. Yeah, I always know the last chapter, actually. And the third book, as I'm kind of writing at the moment, I knew the last chapter in that. I knew the last chapter in the second, and I knew the last chapter in the first. And that does help, because you're always aiming for something. I don't write it out of sequence, I don't write it first, but I kind of know where you're going. I've got to say, like, if I sat down and planned it all out, I know for a fact I'd go off piste massively. All the plans would just go in a bin, because the story would take me in a different direction. And you've got to go where the story takes you, even if that's annoyingly difficult sometimes.
How long does the first draft take you?
It depends, really. If I can write 5 days a week on it, it'll take me about 3 months. And then I'll leave it a bit. I'll leave it for a few weeks and come back to it. On every book, there's been bits I've had to totally rewrite. But I'm pretty fast. I think I'm pretty nippy on it, and because of the nature of the film work I do, it's freelance. It's not a 9-to-5 job, so I feel I kind of owe it to myself to use that time to write. So yeah, about 3 months.
That's fast for pantsing as well. Something quite intricate and detailed.
Yeah,
as the book is.
I mean, I do think, because this is my debut novel, but I'd written 3 books before this that didn't get published, and I didn't get an agent with those, and so I don't think I could have written this book first without going through those other 3 books.
Yeah.
So I kind of got a good working method at that point, and I got the confidence that I knew I'd get to the end. I think certainly when you're starting out writing, you've just got to do whatever works for you. Like, don't listen too much to the rules. Just do what works for you, and just keep your head down and keep going.
Yeah, definitely. Did you have a favourite character to write?
I do, yeah. I mean, Daisy May is easily my favourite character to write. It's hard for me to imagine doing a book like this. And when I started out, it wasn't like I knew she was going to be the best character. You don't really think like that. It's just when a character comes through, like, you almost aren't writing it, you're just taking notes from someone else. So yeah, I really enjoy writing her. She's kind of a bit of a smart ass, and but she's got a heart of gold. And in the 3 books, she's got a good arc, I think. So where she ends up is very different to where she starts.
Oh, right.
And with the characters in general, I always try and do it so you could take any of the characters and in theory make the book about them, because hopefully they've got an interesting enough backstory and there's features of them that are interesting. You don't always succeed, but that's the aim anyway.
Is it going to be a trilogy, or is it going to be a series?
Honestly, I don't know yet. So the book contract is for 3 books. And so the second one's out in August. The third one will be out next summer. And so honestly, it's a mercenary thing to say. It honestly depends how it sells, really, and how people respond to it. So
you can carry on writing it if you're allowed to.
The third one, like, leaves it kind of completes this story arc, the third one, but it leaves it open to others.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, I know we're running out of time. So just one question from Marina, I think.
Yeah, you kind of answered it, because I was going to say, did you plan from the very start that Joe would kind of, well, survive seems like the wrong word, but you know, I mean, not go to
Yeah.
that place.
Yeah. And he's quite a hard, like, whereas Daisy May's a really easy character to write, he's a hard character to write, because particularly through the first book, he doesn't know who he is. So you've got to try and keep the balance of making him a competent detective, but also not really remembering he's a competent detective. Also, because obviously he was a bent copper throughout his career, so he's catching the bad guy is kind of a novel new thing to him. So it was a challenge with him to bring those aspects in and to make him kind of vaguely sympathetic and interesting. Hopefully I did, but I'm definitely team Daisy May. She'd who I'd want investigating my death, put it that way.
I listened to the audio book, and
Okay.
I don't know if you've listened to it.
I've listened to some of it. Yeah,
good.
it is good. She did a great job.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
she
definitely.
did.
Nobody else emailed me to say they had any questions, so I think we're done. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
I will let you go now, because no author wants to sit and listen to their book discussed.
Definitely not. Definitely not. As appreciative as I am of you guys reading it and discussing it, but yeah, I really do appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us, Adam. I really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. All right, have a good night, guys.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye.
That was a good 20 minutes.
That was interesting. I wasn't expecting that.
No, Adam was great.
Yeah, no, I mean, I wasn't expecting what he said about pantsing it, and also that Joe wasn't the sympathetic. I mean, you know, he isn't obviously a very sympathetic character in the end, but he manages to make him sympathetic. Yeah, it was very interesting.
I was shocked when he said he pantsed his book. I was like, no. But yeah, that was interesting. I hope everybody else enjoyed it. So, okay, we'll discuss the book then. As always, first question, did you enjoy it? It was not our usual fare.
Yes, definitely. I've even pre-ordered the next one.
Have you?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Brilliant.
Daisy May. I agree with Adam. Daisy May is the star of that book.
Oh, yeah.
Anybody else? Did you like it? Yes, no?
I liked it.
I loved it.
I liked it, and I kept reading it, but I did find it quite confusing in places as to where we were and what exactly was happening. But that's probably me. So, but no, yes, I did. I did like it.
I didn't like it that much, to be honest, because I didn't like the afterlife aspect of the thing. I read the entire book, and I thought it was a good twist that Joe was actually the bad guy and everything. But okay, I didn't like the afterlife aspect of the book, which was the point of the book. But okay.
Yeah. Lorraine, you enjoyed it?
I did enjoy it, and I really enjoyed the afterlife part of it. I love hanging around cemeteries and things, so I've always believed that there is a limbo, which is something you believe if you're a lapsed Catholic, it's coming back to me. But being in that limbo sort of area was just amazing. And I'd love to know what drugs he was on when he dreamt that jolly thing, because I tell you what, they're good stuff.
That was so well drawn, that afterlife area.
It was, yes, and that's the thing, and it's the spirituality, which I didn't think I really would enjoy, and fantasy, which I've never enjoyed. I'm loving this, and I haven't quite finished it, but it doesn't matter if you tell me the end or whatever. But I think I've got the idea. But to have a policeman who becomes who is the bad cop as well, because you always think, oh, he's going to be a good cop and he'll find it all out. But I'm really intrigued, and I think I would really like to read a trilogy, this kind of thing. So he's done really, really well. So it's really different. Yeah, big tick.
Brilliant. Anybody else?
I
have
really
opinion?
disliked it.
You disliked it,
Yeah.
really disliked
Well,
it.
really, I thought it was two books, really. I loved the sort of the thriller part, but I think it gave away too much to the supernatural. And then I loved the characters, so I really wanted it to work. But then at the end, it just felt like, I don't know what to do, so I'll throw everyone in. Oh, the father was bad. The wife was bad. He was, and it just, I don't know, it just didn't work for me. And the afterlife, I actually thought was just a mess. It was all these bodies flailing around trying to get somewhere. Nothing felt real. I liked the idea of the story, but I just felt that it was like the gloop in the book for me.
I think it's probably one of those books where you're either going to like it or dislike it.
Well, I hadn't read any of this genre, and because I'd missed it with you, before I read this, I read Constance.
Right.
And I absolutely loved it. Every single thing I loved. And so I was so looking forward to this one with that whole, futuristic or whatever. But no, I really didn't like it at all.
No.
Quite different from Constance, because I also loved Constance.
Yeah.
But it's different. It's sci-fi. It's
Yeah,
this is
that
more
might
fantasy,
become
and
true.
Constance was
This is
sci-fi.
fantasy, yeah.
Yeah.
For me, it was just, I don't know. Maybe I don't like fantasy that much.
I do agree with Hilary that the fact that, and the wife was bad as well. And I felt that the motivation for the wife was not very clear at all. So there I did struggle. I was like, oh, really? Her too? Come on, and the partner and so there was like one twist too far, I think, for me there. But yeah, no, otherwise I thought it was a very fresh kind of concept. I really like the concept, and I think there was maybe one or two things where it was a bit overdone in the execution of it, but overall I think it was very interesting.
I felt it was a bit predictable up until when Pete, I from the beginning I was suspicious of Pete, so when it turned out to baddie, I thought, oh, this is so predictable. And then, of course, it got another twist and then another twist. So although it was predictable in some respects, I think, that first bit was definitely predictable.
How did you feel about Adam's portrayal of the afterlife then? Because it was such a big part of the book. That has been said, that it did take quite a big chunk of the book, the afterlife section.
I've always believed that I've always believed that this limbo sort of area is somewhere where people are trying to get out of. So to have these people, desperately trying to get somewhere, hopefully to the top and not so much the bottom, and that desperation really brought back that sort of, and it reminded me very much of the mid-1980s in London, where things were, and the punk rock era and all that kind of thing, and desperation and grittiness, and that's what I liked about that. But I'm only sort of 1/3 of the way through the book, so maybe I'm going to find things are going to go a bit awry and I might not like it as much, so I'll certainly email and let you know completely after I finished it. But at the moment I'm feeling that, yes, you want to be out of limbo. That was the one thing, like babies go to limbo, and that's a whole different thing, but you've gone to limbo because you haven't quite finished something. They say that a lot of ghosts, etc., come around because they can't rest, and that's what I feel that he sort of portrayed. That it's those ghosts that haunt, that are restless because they haven't finished their life or finished something in their life, or something hasn't been completed satisfactorily for them, and they seem to go through a timeline where they just can't rest. And I think that's where he's exploring that. And I'm really, you know, I was up to, well, it's actually 5:30 here in Sydney, Australia. So, and I was up till after midnight reading it. So I thought, oh my God, because I left it so late because I've been busy. But I thought, oh wow, you know, I'm really enjoying this. I thought, I better get some sleep before I get on with this.
Well, thank you for joining us at this hour.
Oh, it's nice, and you know, it's different. That's why the light here is probably a bit sort of harsh, but and I'm feeling a bit harsh, but yeah, no, I enjoyed the book, so I really thought, oh, you know, will I join the crowd tomorrow? I thought, yeah, I have to, because I'm really enjoying this. So I want to hear what everybody has to say. So it's interesting.
Did anybody? It was interesting that he said that he did films and he took things from films, because that the sky opening up was so familiar. When they were in the pit and the sky opened up and somebody went up into wherever. It was like, I can't remember the name of the film with where they, and actually they actually kill them as they get to the top. They don't live over 30, and they're, you know, the film, it's not Blade Runner, one of that type, something like Blade. Does anybody else know what the film's called? Oh, you must know the film. It's
I haven't even seen Blade Runner.
I remember the film, I just can't remember the name. You had a thing in your hand, and when it starts to bleep, that's your time up. And then you went into this room and you went round and round or something.
No, they fought.
Are you talking about Logan's Run?
Logan's Run, that's
Logan's Run. That's it. Logan's Run, where they fought to actually be the ones to be chosen, because they'd got to 30, hadn't they? They'd reached the age of 30, and then they went up into this wherever, and they got rid of. So nobody lived over the age of 30. So yeah, that's what that reminded me of, because I kept thinking, well, when they go up into that, where are they going? You know, are they going to heaven, as it were, or is it just a ruse to get rid of them? So I don't know. That was the only thing that did strike me.
I don't think I would have persevered with the book if I'd carried on reading it. I don't mean that I stopped. I changed and listened to the audiobook.
All right.
And it just changed completely for me then. It wasn't exactly that it was hard to read or anything, and it was all about purgatory. Well, that's what it felt like. And I enjoyed the story. But once I went into the audiobook, it suddenly just became that much clearer. And I did really enjoy it then. I got the way through. Yes, I thought too many people were actually bad guys at the end. I just think I had the same feeling, oh, not you as well. You know, it just seemed that everybody was a baddie. Yeah. But I will definitely read the next one. I decided it had to be, I thought, probably a series. I think Daisy May was just delightful.
Oh, I liked it.
Loved her turns of phrase. Thought he'd really got into her age group and everything. You could just see her and feel her.
And she comes across really well in the audiobook, doesn't she?
Excellent. Well, yeah. I think the narrator or the reader did a very good job in the audiobook. I mean, some audiobooks you don't, but this one actually put a lot of intonation in and changed the voices somewhat, and it was really very clear. Yeah, I would recommend it to anybody. It was good.
From my point of view, I absolutely loved the first couple of chapters. I totally was getting into it. Like everyone else, loved Daisy May. She felt a bit like a Doctor Who sidekick, if you know, and I loved the banter between her and Joe. I think it's my fault, and I feel so bad saying this, because what a lovely guy Adam was, and in fact it made me want to read the next one. Just listening to him, he was so interesting and listenable to. I just didn't get the fantasy thing. I think it's because I don't believe all of that, and I just wanted it to get on with the crime novel, and the fantasy side of it just didn't really interest. And the xylophone man, what was all that about? It's not the most gangster name I've ever heard, and I couldn't understand where that was coming from. And it was interesting listening to Hilary, because she said almost exactly what I was thinking and have said now. So I'm glad I'm not alone.
I like the way they showed how Daisy May got drawn over into the drugs group, the wearing down, and I thought that was quite realistic, and I could see how, you know, Ryan would prey on someone like her. And once you're in there, you know, what do you do?
That was the real life Earth kind of storyline of it as well.
You know, wanting to help her granny, and it was naive, and it was
so sad, that, because
it was lovely.
Between a hard rock and a hard place, wasn't she there? That was awful. What would you do in that situation? It's dreadful, and that was actually that hit home quite bad. Well, no, I don't mean badly, but you know, it's a situation I think a lot of people are in.
Understandable, people get. I haven't read many books in this sort of genre at all. In fact, I can say I don't like science fiction and I don't like fantasy. But the two that we've done in the book club, I've actually quite enjoyed. And the one thing I like and value about the group is that it actually stretches me to read things that I wouldn't normally even be attracted to. You know, I look at them and think, what? I can't believe we've got that. But on the whole, I mean, there haven't been many choices that I've actually thought, well, that was a waste of time, or there's only been one that I haven't completed. So I'm very grateful to you all.
Oh, glad about that. In relation to the crime crossover genre with sci-fi or fantasy, it's actually very difficult to find books to put up for the vote for that, because there aren't that many that do the crossover genre. So every time it's going to be a rarity when we do that crossover genre, because there just aren't that many books that do that.
Wasn't there Rivers of London when we read that? That was kind of the actually
this
one reminded me a little bit of that, wasn't it? That combination.
I wasn't in the club then, but I have actually tried that, and I did. I got on with it. I couldn't. I couldn't get on with it. Abramovich, whatever his name is.
Aronovich. Yeah,
that's it. Yeah.
So back to the book. We're at the usual time for finishing, but we had 20 minutes taken by Adam. If you've got another 5 minutes, we can carry on. Is everybody okay for time? How did everybody feel about Joe's return?
Oh, I thought he had to come back. He just couldn't leave him, because he'd had such a revelation, I think, that he had to come. He had to continue. You know, it was him and Daisy May, wasn't it? And it wouldn't have been right if he hadn't been allowed to come back, as it were. No, I was waiting for that. I'm pleased about it.
You see, I'm more of a noir reader, so actually I was kind of hoping that he wouldn't come back, that it would be, you know, justice would be done, would be served, and, you know, oh, it's sad, but well, that's life, that sort of dark outlook.
It wasn't life, it was death.
Yes, well, that's death for you.
It had to be the opposite.
So you think Daisy May could have run the second book and brought somebody else in with her?
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, why not?
You know, it's funny because I wasn't particularly fond of Daisy May. I like Joe. So,
really?
I found the purgatory stuff kind of messy, but I did enjoy the book. I just found it rather messy. It did remind me of the movie R.I.P.D. with Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah.
But this one's a little more, I guess, religious type. But,
I like the Duchess too. I thought she was. I thought that between her and her sisters, that sort of was quite. The dynamic between the three of those was quite good. I wonder if that carries on.
Well, it has to. I think that's why Hillary got away to the soil. I would suspect that that's book number 2.
Yeah, possibly. With the Duchess chasing her in the forest. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was everybody satisfied by the ending?
Yes.
Yes. Basically, yeah.
That's it. Everybody happy with that one then? Or everybody that enjoyed it anyway? Oh, even if you didn't enjoy it, were you satisfied with it? It ended how you think it would. Who would read the next book in the series? Those that enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I've got a few others I need to read first, and I'll think.
You've got a few weeks anyway.
As long as it doesn't come out till August.
Do we know what the title is? Because I've been looking and I can't find it on the internet.
He did say, didn't he? I can't remember.
Yeah. Let me just look.
It was on. I've saw it on Amazon. It said it on the next one on Amazon.
Yeah, the Generation Killer or something like this.
The Generation Killer.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's not showing up here. Yeah, because I put in Adam Simcox and I only get this book, so it might take a while to get to me here.
All right.
Yeah, the Generation Killer out in August.
The one in Australia. Do you have it? Is it showing
yeah,
up
I
in
saw
here?
that it's the next one's coming up, but it's not going to be released yet, but it's on pre-release. Yeah.
Is it really? Because I'm not seeing that either.
Where are you, Kathy?
I'm just south of Atlanta.
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
My brother lives in Atlanta. Sorry.
We have a new member with short blonde hair and glasses who only says iPad.
Sorry.
I don't know what to call you, but you wanted to say something.
Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know how you change the settings to show your name, but it's Claire.
Claire, hello, Claire.
I was just gonna
Oh
say,
no, the bad woman.
Yeah.
yeah,
With or without an I.
Anony, actually. So
Oh.
but I listen to it on audiobook, and I listen to hundreds of audiobooks because I listen to them while I'm working and around the house and walking the dogs, and I thought the audiobook was one of the better ones. I thought she did a really good job, and I like this genre. Years ago I read a guy called Robert Rankin. I don't know if you've heard of him. He did the Brentford trilogy and the Brussels Sprout Massacre, and it was in this sort of weird fantasy sort of genre, and I really liked it. And I love the Rivers of London books as well, and like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and but I listened to a lot of normal crime, so it took a bit of getting used to, because I was, like other people have said, if you're used to reading a lot of crime books, it was very different, and you had to sort of get into a different mindset really, and get your head around it. And I could definitely see it, the way it was written. I could see it on Netflix or something like that.
It's going to be a movie, isn't it?
Yeah, I could really see the way it was written.
It was visual.
Yeah, very. Yeah. So
swimming through treacle with oxygen tanks.
Actually, that's a question. Maybe I should have asked that question instead. It came to mind when he said that, he'd written 3 and they'd been rejected and so on. And I was going to say, did he find that the fact that he was writing for films, was that a help or a hindrance? Because I know quite a lot of writers kind of changed their style, like George Pelecanos from the US, when he started writing for The Wire and things like that, he then started changing the way he was writing novels, and it became more film-like and so on. So I wonder if, you know, when you start out with film and then go to novels, if maybe it was too, I don't know, filmic, too condensed, too sparse or something to start off with.
I missed the beginning of that. Does he actually change?
So he
make
writes for
novels,
film. Yeah, he makes
changes
films
them
and
to
he writes
film.
scripts. Yeah.
Scripts, thank you.
Mhm.
Script, right.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay, I'll press stop. Does anybody have anything else to say on the book? No, everybody happy? Okay, I'll stop the recording.